Transformation begins with me. It's about my recent trip to Paraguay. So I was on the bus with my translator, who I just met, Florence, and we were en route to the largest university in Ascension, the capital city. And she was explaining to me how this university, about 50,000 students, that fall, had overthrown the administration of the school. Totally unheard of. The student population went on strike. And some of the reasons that this happened were, aside from the student body themselves being upset, they knew there was so much money being spent, and yet they'd go to classrooms during rainy season and they'd get wet because water would be coming through the ceiling and drenching them. Teachers wouldn't show up for classes. They would just be handed books with a note. Read this, read this, read this. They're supposed to have air conditioning, and when it gets hot there, it gets hot there. So in the classrooms, it's 120 degrees. All of them are supposed to be air conditioned. In fact, you couldn't open the windows because it's made for air conditioning, yet the air conditioning wasn't working. So students went on strike, and they were able to overthrow the entire administration, get them booted out. Totally unheard of in this country of South America, Latin America, where what happens? It's all corrupt. Everybody knows it's corrupt. They live with it being corrupt. And that's just how it is, and everybody just goes, okay, well, it's corrupt. What am I going to do? That's one of the reasons why Paraguay was selected from over 20 countries that applied to John Maxwell to bring his team to bring transformational leadership to their country. So myself and 9 other coaches and our translators, all of us as coaches, all certified coaches, trainers, and speakers on this bus today, going to the university. And our assignment was to go to an auditorium where there's 1,000 students and hand out materials. Materials like this, that talks about transformational roundtables. And this book, the Spanish version of John Maxwell's new book, Intentional Living. Now, except their roundtable book didn't look like that one, it looked like this one, because it was in Spanish. And while we were handing these out, there were presenters that were explaining the roundtable process to the students, and a testimonial from someone from Colombia who was a former drug trafficker and drug addict himself, who said that by being exposed to the roundtable process and its values-based leadership, it actually saved his life. And then John Maxwell was introduced to the audience. So standing ovation, John Maxwell gets up. He says, look, I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. I had to speak to the current administration and the university president. But I chose the students first because I have a busy week ahead. I'm going to be speaking to the mayor, senators, congressmen, business leaders. But I told everyone that was planning this trip, I'm going to speak to the youth first. Because to make change, all those people are old people. Who knows what they're going to do? It's the youth that are going to bring cultural change to this country. It's only the youth. It's you. It's each one of you that are going to make a difference. That's going to make something happen. So that's why I said, I have to speak with you first. You have to be the first people I'm going to see. And each of you, here's all I ask. Become a facilitator. Take the roundtable process to 4 people. And if you do that, I promise I'll be back here on March 28th and 29th. Each of you will get another one of these books, and I'll sign it, and I'll speak to you for the entire day. And if each of the 4 people in your round table do the same thing, I'll come back a month later, and I'll do the same thing for each of them. So if you think about what that means, it's kind of like the Malcolm Gladwell book, The Tipping Point. Because in Paraguay, there's 7.5 million people. And what The Tipping Point says about that is if you want to change a culture, you need 10%. 10% of the people. 700,000 people need to get on board. So you can kind of do the mental math. Our goal was to train 10,000 people during the time we were there for 1 week. We ended up training 20,000 people. If each of them trained 4, each of those 4 trained 4, one more time, I think we're pretty close. On the bus ride back to where our staging area was, I saw basically shanty towns. People that were living with plywood and rags and plastic all along the roadway. And when we pulled up where we had to exit the bus, there was a mall nicer than the Stanford Mall. Name stores all over the place, name cars, a Porsche dealership right next to it. And yet the sidewalk where we exited the bus, every 5 feet, there was a missing slab of concrete. If you were doing the cell phone thing like you do in New York, the cell phone thing, right? Seriously, 6 or 10 feet down, you'd be in the hospital. There's no way. Every 5 feet, it was like bombs went off. And it didn't just happen yesterday. You can see it's been like that, and I'm sure it'll be back like that if I go back there again, sometime soon. I'm certain of it. So our role each day was to get up at 5:30, eat a quick breakfast, wait to hear the sound. Need one coach, need 2 coaches. You get matched up with a translator, you get hustled up to a van or a bus, materials get piled in, and you go off somewhere to train someone at some place, and you had no idea where you were going. Didn't have a clue. You could be going to a hospital, you could be going to a school, you could be going to a government building, you can be going to a prison. You had no clue where you were off to. Now, one of my favorite stories was, in terms of an experience for me, was in closing of a group. The groups could be 6 people, 10 people, 30 people, 40 people. This particular group on my last day was 130 people. I was closing the group to convince them that we were all volunteers and we were leaving. We came here, we paid our airfare, we paid for our hotel bill, we paid for our own food, but we came here to share our heart with them. And each of us was leaving with a piece of our heart with them, saying to them, you could do this. In one of our meetings, we were given these medals, and I said to them, you're the one that should have this medal, not me. You can do this, just take the one small step. You can bring change, you don't have to live like this. And my translator, when I finished, was crying, and she was leaving the room. So I followed her, and I said, Nadia, what's wrong? She said, I can't believe you just said that. I love you, thank you so much for coming to my country.
That was really great. Gotta take a minute to wrap your brain around it. What an awesome speech you just heard, and then provide Mitch any feedback that he has. One thing that Mitch did really well, if you're kind of struggling to think about, is when he had his materials, he really did a good job of kind of walking around the whole room and just framing it, making sure everyone could see it, and then the tables kind of guide you around the room in the direction it should walk in. And that's something I noticed people, if you want to show something, kind of just show like one person. So that's something Mitch did very well. Thank you.